Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by SafeT Systems. What do you want in a security system? You want a good, cost-effective contract, that's first. You want trustworthy installation and monitoring from people who are dedicated to keep your home and your office safe. You get all that with SafeT Systems, and you get better deals than you get with the national companies. Tell you what, you take any contract to them, I guarantee you these guys can beat it. Call VFL JJ Surlis about a security system for your home, your office. They can handle it. They've been doing it for 20 years. SafeT Systems. Okay, let's go straight to a quote here. I thought this was interesting. Jeremy Pruitt this week at one of these fan events said, "For everybody that's associated with Tennessee, we need to raise our expectations. I know everybody's excited about going 8-5 and finishing the year the right way. The people we're competing against, they're trying to kick us while we've been down, right? We've been kicked around a little bit. It's time for us to do a little bit of kicking ourselves." All right, sounds good. See if you remember this from 2012. Derek Dooley at SEC Media Days. "For the first time, we have a full roster in place. It's been a tough 4 years for Tennessee. I know the SEC has enjoyed taking advantage of our tough times, but you're not going to have Tennessee to kick around anymore." Kind of close. Probably too close for Tennessee fans, more than they would prefer. You don't want your coach doing anything that channels the inner Dooley, I don't think. But thoughts on Jeremy Pruitt? I don't think he cares. I think you nailed it earlier. I don't think he's worried about what he says and what the expectations are. But it is the total opposite of the Butch Jones. Butch Jones tried to say, "Look, people, 9-4 is a step in the right direction," and people were throwing tomatoes at him. This guy's saying, 8-5, we got to raise our expectations. That's great. People love it now. If you don't meet the expectations, they're going to hate you the same way they hated Butch Jones. Your thoughts, Vince, on the way he's handling things?
I think it's great. I mean, obviously the fans are going to love it, but look, now that's true. But look, it's consistent with what Jeremy Pruitt has said. Whether it's been wins or losses, Pruitt has said, "Hey, we're not into moral victories here. We're about trying to win championships." So that speaks to the fans, and also I think Josh kind of alluded to it earlier. If you downplay your expectations, guess what's still the same? The expectations. You still got to deliver, whether you talk in a boastful way or whether you try to downplay and lower the expectations. You still got to deliver at the University of Tennessee. So you might as well get the fans excited and sell those tickets. And so I think both of them are approaching it great.
Yeah, I don't think he said, we're going to do some kicking ourselves and go 11-1 next year.
Right,
it's just like, I think he'd like to beat some of the big boys.
But I don't think fans are going to hear that and go, "Wow, he thinks 8-5 again next year."
You're probably right, but I think he'd like to beat one of the big boys. Get the Georgia, the Florida, the Alabama, the Oklahoma. I think they're certainly a lot closer to that. I think those games feel a lot more winnable in 2020 than they did in 2018 when it felt impossible. So I think you start there. I mean, Tennessee could surprise people in 2020, but I still think you look at 2021 as kind of the year, even with a new quarterback possibly, rebuilt defensive line possibly, as kind of the time when Tennessee can really take a step. But there's some things on the table for them in 2020, and that quote and Fulmer's quote, you're right. They're going to be talked about in October, either in a Nostradamus type way or what were y'all thinking type of way.
Yeah.
Right.
It's one of those things that other people in the SEC might get a chuckle out of them if Tennessee falls on its face this year. But aside from that, there's really not much downside to it. As Vince said, you're exciting your fan base. You're giving people reason for optimism. You're trying to feed into the perception that you are going in the right direction, which can become a self-fulfilling prophecy to some degree if you get the ball rolling. So I think there's no harm in doing it. And like you said, it's the opposite of Butch Jones, which people like. They don't want to hear excuses for why you're doing things a certain way. It's also just who Jeremy Pruitt is. If you'd asked him since day one, even though they weren't beating South Carolina, weren't beating Kentucky and Vanderbilt consistently, when he came in, he thought from day one, we're competing with Alabama, we're competing with Florida, we're competing with Georgia, and that's not going to change, and that's how he views it.
Yeah, I think that Jeremy Pruitt legitimately thought they would have had better results to this point. Not just, hey, we're confident, we're going to go. I think before the season, he really thought Tennessee would have and probably should have gone better than 7-5 in the regular season. Now, he was still proud of the turnaround. He was proud of the way that his team bought in after that terrible start. But he thought that would have a better record and then lead to better results in recruiting. He expected to go sign more players that they kind of missed out on back in September and October. So what I like about it is that it does give us a peek into what he really thinks. He really thinks that they should go compete with Florida, Georgia, and Bama. And he knows realistically they're not winning all of those games, but they should do a lot better than they've done the last two seasons against especially Florida, since that'll be your first real test in the SEC.
The only thing that worries me is I've been through this we've done this show 17 years. I've seen this a few times. Butch Jones, 7-6 is not 8-5, 7-6 his second year. Went to a bowl game, won the bowl game. Fans went to Jacksonville, turned out, followed that up with the top 10 signing class, and then eventually it all fell off the table. I think what may be different, though, is one, the head coach, but also what we talked about in that last segment, the support staff all the way around is probably better for Pruitt than it was for Jones as well. Still, though, as someone who has thought Tennessee, many is the time we've made the perfect storm comparison here, where the sky's clear, Clooney and Wahlberg think they're getting out, and then she's not letting us out, boys. The hurricane's back. So I'm a little leery of, all right, we're through with all that. Now it's onward and upward. Hope so. Maybe it is, but
I do think
I've had too many backslides to be that confident.
Having been at Alabama, Florida State, and Georgia, Jeremy Pruitt has only experienced the highest level of expectations. At Georgia, he was a part of staff that got fired that was winning more than Tennessee is right now. Now being at Tennessee, I think Jeremy Pruitt is at least a part of those expectations. Now it's a matter of, can you go meet them? Very
quickly here, guys, we're throwing this one in. Yesterday, it went out on social media. It's a video. Seen it here. David Johnson, who left Tennessee as running backs coach to go to Florida State and to be their running back coach and recruiting coordinator down there under Mike Norvell, who he'd worked with in Memphis. He made a comment that is, quote, "I went there for 2 years, meaning Tennessee, and it didn't fit me. It's hard for me to recruit somewhere when I don't really trust what's going on. I trust this guy," meaning Norvell. Okay, now we talked about Fulmer and Pruitt, and it's red meat to the base. That doesn't strike me as a red meat comment. That's not, I'm back to Florida, I'm at Florida State now because I'm about national titles. That's red meat, okay. The trust thing is an interesting comment. I'm going to guess Jeremy Pruitt had a raised eyebrow. He doesn't care about a lot, he might have cared about that. I thought that was an interesting comment. Thoughts?
Yeah, Jeremy Pruitt's eyebrow is always technically raised, but I think I think certainly it's ambiguous and it's odd. But I think is that a comment from a guy who probably was not the greatest of friends with his previous boss? Possibly. I think it's ambiguous enough to wonder. But I'd be curious to get some clarification. I talked to David Johnson for an exit interview on The Athletic. I wish he would have dropped that.
Yeah, he didn't put that one in there.
He didn't drop that one in with me. It's this thing with boosters and media. It feels like there's two different coaches. Where this is how it goes.
It might have been a failed way to try to compliment Mike Norvell and sort of take the scenic route to get there, but it didn't work out that way.
Yeah,
detour through
some angry seas in Tennessee if you're going to take shots at a guy that they like. Now, if he'd done that in September and he left, I think they'd be like,
yeah, that's right.
Of course.
See,
of
David
course.
Johnson even admits it. Yeah.
I'm with Vince. I think it's maybe contrasting just how he feels about Mike Norvell as opposed to a situation where maybe he didn't think he had, Jeremy Pruitt had his back or whatever that might be. I think it's just him expressing in a different way how comfortable he feels with Mike Norvell compared to a previous staff where maybe he didn't quite get that warm and fuzzy feeling all the time.
Had they let him talk to the media more, he would have had more experience and wouldn't have taken that approach.
So it came back to backfire on Tennessee. All right. When we come back, that's good we got that in there. When we come back, what can you do with a basketball team that can't shoot? We're going to talk about just how bad this offense is. We're going to look ahead at the next week for Tennessee basketball. Then we're back to football, roster comparisons. We got a long way to go here on the Sports Source. Come on back.